The journey to Dawn's Citadel was a miserable slog. The vast majority of the forests and jungles of Molech had been stripped away to deny the Tyranids biomass. But with the rainy season beginning, the planet became an enormous mud pit. The army slowed to a crawl, but the need to reach Dawn's Citadel was urgent. Every day it became more and more miserable. All units were either outside on foot, or it was their shift to sleep while eating crammed into chimeras. Most of the guardsmen slept very little, except for veterans who had learned how to sleep anywhere. For the Ogryns, things were particularly bad. Even with Fletcher's speech about disappointing the Emperor, Ogg and his fellows became more and more agitated, and were more likely to become angry and frustrated. As Ogryn are fully capable of overturning a tank in their rage, Fletcher allowed Bonehead Biff to bring a lumen stick in the Chimera with them. Fletcher turned to more traditional ways of encouraging his charges to enter the transports. Generally, some unfortunate guardsman who incurred the minor wrath of one of his officers would be assigned to lure the Ogryn into the Chimera with food. Once they were all inside, the unfortunate guardsman would then be trapped with a motion-sick, panicky Ogryn. Fletcher's unit was a little calmer with the lumen stick, but the experience was still quite unpleasant. However, one day, everything went surprisingly smoothly, and the young guardsman assigned to Ogryn duty emerged without even a spatter of vomit on him. Commissar Fletcher promptly questioned him.
"Guardsman, what did you do? Did you find some corner to hide in?" "No, Commissar, sir. I remained with Bonehead Biff's unit." "And?" "Well, sir, I told them the story of the littlest snowboar from my home world, a betelous tree. My granddad used to tell it to me when I was a boy, sir. So I started telling the story, and one by one they all drops off to sleep, sir." "What is your name, guardsman?" "Dylan Burke, sir." "Well, Dylan Burke, any time you'd rather tell stories than march, you're welcome in our chimera. Spread the word among the other men and women of your unit. I want volunteers to keep my lads calm during the march. And I think some time out of the mud might be good for some of you as well." "Yes, sir." "You speak with the rank and file, and I'll have a word with your commander." "Yes, sir." Dismissed.
The remainder of the journey was much more tolerable. The Ogryns were a bit more calm, though traveling in the transports was still somewhat upsetting for them. However, with the Emperor's Light, which was what they had come to call the lumen stick, and stories from the guardsmen, they were able to get to sleep much more quickly. Fletcher's method of dealing with the transport challenge spread throughout the army, with overall morale improving as a result. Ogryn outbursts of anger were reduced, and guard morale was further improved when men and women had the option of skipping a marching shift by playing storyteller to an Ogryn platoon. Ogg, Gus, and Biff had the serious challenge of taking care of their las cannons in all this mud. They were not built for Ogryn use. Ripper guns were built to be nearly impossible for Ogryns to destroy. Las cannons were much more sensitive by comparison. Not that las cannons weren't reliable battle-tested machines, but they couldn't just be dropped in a mud pit and be expected to work without a thorough cleaning afterwards. Biff had been trained by Gallus on how to load and fire a las cannon, and Biff and Fletcher passed this information on to Gus and Ogg, who seemed to be getting the hang of things. Sergeant Lazarus and the attached Lamenter Company were used as advanced scouts to help the Astra Militarum units avoid the worst of the mud, but it was still slow going. The Tyranids seemed to be having difficulty moving through the mud as well. Even their burrowing bioforms seemed to get stuck in the morass. Fletcher expected them to adapt sooner or later, but for the moment the only contact they had from the enemy were gargoyles and other flying bioforms. The army's Hydra tanks seemed to be sufficient to drive them off with few casualties. Ogg and Gus took the opportunity to try out their las cannons, firing them into the cloud of wings and claws above them. The experience was frustrating. In the heat of battle, Ogg was accustomed to letting his battle rage take over, and he would unload his Ripper gun until he got into close combat. Then it was smash and bash until the fight was over. Now, he could only fire and reload, and with the swarm of gargoyles, he couldn't even tell if he was hitting. The las cannon wasn't even designed to be a melee weapon. If he struck something with it, he would likely break it. When the fight was over, Ogg went over to Biff.
I don't like this.
Ogg was doubly irritated because of an acid burn on his shoulder.
This las cannon is stupid. I hate it. I want to smash bad bugs, but I can't because it's stupid.
Biff put one hand on Ogg's shoulder firmly, and another on his arm. He did not want Ogg breaking the las cannon in frustration.
That is the Emperor's gun, and it is not stupid. It's different and it's hard.
Remembering that this was the Emperor's gun, Ogg stopped his tantrum and relaxed.
I'm sorry, Biff. I did a bad job.
Biff looked back at the retreating swarm of gargoyles.
No, you did fine. We won the fight, and you shot the gun like you were supposed to, and you didn't break it. It's just not fun. Being in the guard isn't fun all the time.
Is everything all right, Bonehead?
Yes, sir, Commissar Fletcher, sir. Ogg was mad because the gun is different, and he can't smash enemies now.
Ogg, do not hit enemies with the las cannon. That is very bad. But he makes a point. I should requisition some appropriate melee weapons for you. I'll give you something to smash the bad bugs with. But do not smash with the las cannon. Ogg relaxed. He still felt chastened, and his face was red. He rejoined the rest of the Ogryns, and they continued their seemingly endless march. Fletcher was able to acquire a few adamantium rods that the Ogryns could use in place of their las cannons if they were forced into melee. Eventually, the mud ended, and they began climbing a mountain. Climbing was hard, but it was much easier than moving through the mud all the time. When the army reached the top, they could look down onto Dawn's citadel in the distance. The vast, ancient fortress was besieged. The cannons fired again and again, and the void shield flickered under the Tyranid assault. Clouds of gargoyles filled the sky as massive Harridan biotitans circled above on powerful thermal winds. A huge swarm gathered at the base of the fortress, full of every biological terror the hive mind could throw at them. The teeming mass was only broken up by the immense forms of biotitans hurling their deadly salvos at the defenders. It was time to face the bad bugs again.